So I pulled the knife out, started telling everyone I was going to kill him. Whoever gave me up, I'm going to kill you, same stuff. And everyone started scattering. Long story short, I was chasing a few people through the streets. I was fly kicking a few people. Not trying to do harm, more like a fun thing. It is completely normal for everyone there to be a bank robber, armed robber, ram raider, heroin addict. That was just normal. I was sweet. I spent my life in jail. I was a somebody in jail.
What is a way to deal with drug crime?
There's going to be at no point in humanity where there is no violence. And there's going to be no point in humanity where people aren't going to want to use substances to relieve themselves of whatever excuse they have.
Let's say I go to jail tomorrow. What happens when you walk in for the first time?
The process is very sad and boring and long.
How do you expect someone to go into jail for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, 10 years, and then walk out and be anything close to normal?
I'm cooked.
Yeah.
I'm so cooked.
I hear him chat to the noise, move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys, man so tough, but mans keep walking.
G'day ladies and gentlemen, my name's Isaac Butterfield and welcome to Cancel Me Now. If you're new here, go and press subscribe, I beg of you. On today's episode, we have a bloke who just released a book, The Great Man. A guy who has been involved in some interesting circles over the past 3.5 decades since he was born. This is a man who has been on the streets. This is a man who has been incarcerated, been in boys' homes, been in juvie, been involved in stabbings. Is that allegedly? I don't know. I think he has, right, Lordy? Yeah. If you haven't, I'm sorry. We'll take that out. Oh, stabbed himself. What do you mean? Oh, so well, according to producer Lordy, is that in the book? It's in the book. Okay, he missed one of the stabbings and got himself. Okay, fair enough. Anyway, he's found he's a rapper as well. He's got a great podcast. I was listening to that yesterday, and very interesting to hear someone who you probably wouldn't think would have a long form conversation. And he's a very interesting cat. Mate, he is doing well for himself. You know, he's getting out there. He's found internet virality on Instagram. Hudusbra, the ESHAYS life, the lad life, loves it, breathes it, lives on the streets. And from people I've spoken to, this is a legit human being. You know, he's a heavy, if you will. I spoke to one of these guys who I became friends with at my local gym. And he said, this is when SPANIAN sort of first came out onto the scene, onto the Instagram scene, if you will, Facebook scene. He was a rapper already. And he said, mate, this guy walks down Redfern, which is a suburb in Sydney, known for drugs and violence and that type of stuff, I guess you could say. It's a lot more gentrified now. But he said that this bloke walks down there and people call him into the shop and say, come over here, brother. And he's taking people into the shops, the mother and pop shops and all that type of stuff and looking after them. An interesting guy. So he's on his way now. He's almost here. And this is my conversation with Hurus lad, SPANIAN. Thanks for coming, brother. I appreciate it.
Sweet, thank you.
My bloody pleasure. Now, we have been talking about just sort of what you've been doing, all that type of stuff. You've been on like a media tour. You got your
the last
book.
couple of weeks, They've been sending me everywhere.
Fuck, you look jacked on that photo too.
Yeah. I go through my phases.
It's a good cover.
Yeah.
You're obviously very into fitness.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
Some months.
Yeah.
Some months I'm not.
How you going at the moment? What are you doing?
At the moment, I'm keto.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get as skinny as I can whilst training to maintain a bit of shape.
Okay, so that's exactly how I train. Yep. I go through like a cutting phase with keto.
Yep.
And I use that for maybe 2-3 months.
Yep.
Drop down. I recently did it up until probably about a month and a half ago. Dropped down to 102.5. Yep. And now I want to just sort of build back up on that, increase my calories to a point where, you know, I can build a bit of muscle, all that type of shit. Yeah, and man, I find that the best way to control your calories is by far with keto. Like I when I originally did it, I did it because I have epilepsy. Or a form of epilepsy. Yep. And I read that, and I heard about people, they used to treat kids with epilepsy who didn't respond to medication. they used to treat them with the keto diet.
And it reduces seizures.
It does.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
So the whole idea is your body starts running instead of glycogen, it runs off ketone bodies. And it was really interesting because I dropped from 134 kilos. Like I was big.
That's it.
Dropped down to 94.
Yeah.
I was fucking way too skinny.
Yeah.
But it's just the best way to control calories because you don't eat as much.
Yeah, 100. Because the type of food you're eating, it's like it's very satiating.
Yes.
Like you're barely hungry. In fact, you know, when I do keto, sometimes it goes too far. Like you're not hungry enough, and you get so skinny. I always say that to my missus. You know, when you see like fat people walking around, I'm thinking, have these people ever heard of keto?
Yeah, it's
like,
easy.
Yeah.
And you get to eat good food too.
Yeah.
It's not like, you know, I can't have that steak because it's a bit, you know, it's this and that.
No, you get the best food.
Best food.
That's why, like, if you look at it like straight away, you think, oh, it's so restrictive, but it's all you're leaving out is the jump.
Yep.
That's how I say to my missus. It's like, when people are trying to sell you drugs and it's like full of the rubbish, like they're jumping it.
Yeah.
That's how carbs are.
100%.
It's like when you go to a hot food store and it's like, it's just full of bread and rice to save
the buns,
money.
the chips, all that shit.
You're leaving that stuff out.
Yeah.
Yeah, the good stuff.
So with keto, I found that, you know, you remove the chips, the buns, all that type of stuff, and you do reduce your calories, but because, as you said, you're more satiated because you're relying on fat.
Yeah.
And it is the way to go for people. People always say this though. They say it is not a good diet because you can't do it for a long time.
Yeah.
That's just you can. That's just a lie. Like you can do it.
Yeah.
It's tough,
It
but
is,
a lot of
yeah.
things in life are tough.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to lose weight or do you want to just gorge yourself for the rest of your life?
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? So that's the only sort of negative thing that I've heard from people is there's no way you can stick to it.
Yeah.
But man, I do it on the road.
Yeah. I reckon the only way people get that perspective because they're relying on eating out. 100% when you're eating out, it is hard.
Definitely.
When you're eating out, it's like all you can really get. Nearly all those famous places, you can't eat at them.
Yes.
Pretty much. All you can really rely on is you go to a pub and you get the steak and veggies. Or you go to Indian and you ask for the curry without the rice. So it's just the meat and the sauce, which is grouse.
Yeah.
I actually do that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, like a lot of people said that they end up hating it because they go somewhere and it's like everyone's munching out and they can't eat nothing, you know. But if you understand what you're doing and prepare for it, you're eating the best food.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I tried a carnivore diet. Have you ever tried that?
I have for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Bro, I'll tell you what, like I felt that's something I can't stick to. All right. That's
tough.
That's too far for me, but I felt hectic. I felt hectic on it. But I just couldn't cop it. I just couldn't cop only eating eggs and meat, but I felt grouse. And I actually, one day, I swear I had a respectful conversation with a vegan at the front of Town Hall in Sydney. They put up their signs and their
TVs
horrific videos, you know, those, yeah. And I went up there and I was talking to the bloke, and it was the first time like a vegan, you know how you see them and they argue with everyone and they got the facts. And I told him, like, respectfully and intelligently, I said, brah, look, I've done a carnivore diet. If you're telling me we're not supposed to eat meat, I've done a carnivore diet, and I do diets all the time, and I've had a lot of spare time on my hands in my life. And so I've gone through every type of diet, and I've never felt as good as a carnivore diet and I even said to him, as bad as that is to say, you know, because like, I understand that the place where humans are at, that if we were just to rely on animals and keep killing animals, I understand that. And we just got animals in farms. And I don't think that's a good thing. And there's a lot of torture and all that stuff. And yeah, I don't agree with it. But unfortunately, I think the problem is that there's just too many humans that makes eating meat unsustainable. It's not the fact that we're eating meat. And they see it the other way. They see it as like, no, it doesn't matter how many humans they are. We just eat vegetables and everything will be fine. Yeah, and when I explained it to him, I said, bro, I felt so good. I felt better than keto. I felt better than this. I felt better than that. And he was just like, oh, what can I say? Yeah.
I was on it for a week, and the thought of a steak after a week just made me ill. I was just like, I can't do it again. And that's what they say with that. It's like, hey, if you're really hungry on carnivore, you know, you got to go. You got to get a steak. You got to salt it up. But people like Jordan Peterson, I know his daughter, I know Joe Rogan did it for a couple of months. They swear by it.
Oh, do they?
And in the week that I did it, I have like issues with anxiety problems and that type of shit.
Same.
And I had no anxiety that day, that week rather.
Legit.
It was weird.
Yeah.
It was like everything was calm. And I don't know if it was just sort of one of these sort of situations where, you know, you try something and you feel okay and you're like, well, it has to be that.
Yeah.
It may have been.
Could have been coincidental, but
it could have been.
Yeah.
It could have been. But people swear by it. And people like Jordan Peterson's daughter, Michaela, she had juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And she was a kid and she was having like ankle replacements, knee replacements. And she, from that point, you know, serious pain and on all the opioid drugs.
Yeah.
Basically on heroin at this point, you know, heroin given to you by a pharmacist.
For sure.
And she switched to diet up, cut out all this shit, and has no pain at the moment.
That's it.
For the last 10 years or whatever it's been.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people just like, they don't want to talk about diet having an impact on health.
Yeah.
But man, it does.
For sure.
And you were talking about, you know, larger, fatter people. We talk about the coronavirus and we talk about vaccines, and man, there's so many people, like the deaths from coronavirus, elderly or obese, and no one talks about people being obese and that being an issue when it comes to things like the coronavirus, the flu, all that shit.
Yeah, I didn't even know that.
Man, I don't know what the numbers are.
Yeah.
I've talked about them in videos. I don't know them off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But the amount of people that have died from the Rona, take out old people.
Yeah.
Take out people who are, you know, really sick with horrible things like cancer and stuff. The vast majority, obese.
That's it.
Yeah. And no one talks about it. Everyone's like, no, you got to get a jab. You got to get this. You can't go to the gym. You can't go to the park. And I get that. You know, I understand. We don't want to spread things, whatever. But no one talks about that because they don't want to offend people.
Yeah. And of course, it wouldn't fit in with what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
There's no distractions. There's no place for distractions.
No, man. I was listening to the Northern Territory chief minister. I guess that's a premier. I don't know. And he was going, anyone who questions anything about anything to do with vaccines is an anti-vaxxer.
Yeah.
And I was like, listen, man, I understand that vaccines can be very good and they've done amazing things. And I've got the vaccine, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
But you should be, regardless of how good something is, you should be allowed to question it.
You know what? I swear, I was just thinking this last night, because of one of my friends put up a funny post about one of his friends being an anti-vax or whatever. It's like, what is the extent to someone refers to you as an anti-vaxxer? Like, so I got vaccinated when I was a kid. Yeah, not by my choice, but I'm vaccinated. And I've had flu shots. So that's a vaccine, isn't it? All right, I've had flu shots. But then it comes to the point where they're telling us, like, they're just scaring us with stuff and saying you have to, they're just threatening us. They're just bossing us around. So does refusing to do something because you don't want to be bossed around or because you're not scared of what they tell you to be scared of, are you now anti-vaxxer?
Yeah, and that's what this dude in the Northern Territory is saying.
It's what he's saying.
Any questions, you're an anti-vaxxer.
Yeah, even if you've had previous vaccines for other things. I've had Hep V vaccine. I've had Hep C vaccine. What if I don't want this one? I'm an anti-vaxxer now.
Because you have to play ball.
And then when the next thing comes.
Yeah. And this is the problem. And don't get me wrong. People are going to look at this podcast and go, what the fuck is SPANIAN and this Butterfield bloke talking about vaccines? They don't know what they're talking about. But I know what, and you know what freedom looks like.
Yeah.
And freedom includes being able to question things. And I genuinely believe the most insane human being who thinks that they're putting microchips and all this shit, they should be allowed to say that.
Oh, for sure.
And just exactly the same as the most lover of vaccines and fill me up, fill me to the brim.
Yep.
They should be allowed to say that.
For sure they should.
And you as an intelligent person, I as an intelligent human being slightly, we should be able to look at it and go, I agree, I disagree, and make up our fucking minds. And that's the problem with it. If this was a more deadly illness, then okay. Then we have some issues. If this is smallpox, if this is the Black Death, and it's killing 75% of the people around you, then okay. If people are saying, no, I don't want to get that, then that's an issue.
Yeah. But it's legit, if I'm scared of something, I'll get it.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm scared, I'll get it. You know what I mean? Like, if I come out one day and I see one person, just one person, I walk in the show, I see one sick person or one person die, like the zombie apocalypse that we're been made to believe it is. I just want to see one thing. I'll get it. I don't care. You know what I mean? But like at the end of the day, like we have a choice. And don't forget, like those people you said, those crazy people who might say it's a microchip or blah, 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 whatever. It's probably the same people 10 years ago that were laughing at for saying there's UFOs.
Yeah.
When all of a sudden it's just like,
and
here's the government are like, here's UFOs. And Let's just not talk about it. But here's the photos. And then we just all swept it under the rug that we laughed at these people for 40 years because they were believing in it.
And the thing with conspiracies is, and this is what people never talk about, is sometimes they're right.
Yeah.
Not all the time. Like lizard people, not so much. And that's like people like David Icke. You know David Icke?
I heard of him.
So he's the whole, he's got a lot of things right. Much like Alex Jones.
Yeah.
A lot of things right. But he comes out with crazy shit like lizard people, like the Queen's a lizard.
Yeah.
And then people are like,
so discredits everything.
But he's been right about things.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the same with the UFOs. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, people were like, you're fucking insane.
Oh, for sure.
But now it's like the Pentagon's releasing shit.
Right, like they're showing us, like, it's those same people that don't believe anything unless the government says it. You know, them people, which is the majority of people. So the government are now telling us, like, oh, look, here it is. We don't know what it is. And it's like, but people just choose, you know how it is. People just choose to pick the parts that go in with their beliefs already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's the path, it's the easiest path.
It is, yeah.
And they listen to the news. And I've made a decision to listen to the news as an observer. And I listen to what they say because I follow the news throughout the day, and I follow it on Twitter, and I follow it on the news sites, and through, not just Google, but DuckDuckGo, these places that don't sort of have outside interests.
Yep.
And then you listen to it on the news and you're like, well, that's not completely true. And then you, like, a current affair comes on, you're like, and then you hear someone parrot it the next day. They say exactly what they said. And you're like, well, you're just getting your news from whoever owns the news network. Yeah. And for places like Australia, who have most of the news owned by Rupert Murdoch, you're just getting what not like he just says, well, we have to say this tonight. Obviously, he's not saying that, but what is in his best interests. Yeah. People like,
for sure,
Anthony Albanese, the leader of the opposition. The reason people don't know who he is, no one fucking knows. The reason they don't know is because no one talks about him in the media, because they just want to pretend he doesn't exist.
That's right.
Man, it's tough. And
I'll tell you, it's a little bit off topic, but my first experience with the media that, like, made my eyes open to how much they lie was something happened when I was a kid, done this school siege, this and that, got arrested for it, whatever. But, like, what happened was I'd done this thing, ended up getting apprehended by council workers, bashed me and apprehended me. By 6 o'clock that night, I was on national news. Yeah. And they had changed the story. I don't know why, because the story was good enough as it was, but they had changed the story to a student with a knife was apprehended and chased away by teachers wielding baseball bats.
Right.
Like, that's something so insignificant as my bodgy, meaningless story on the news. They felt the need to just craft
jizz it up.
Just why?
Yeah.
It's good enough as it was. I had a knife. Council workers come later and bashed me, but they made it out. And when I looked at that, and I thought something so simple and meaningless, and they're gonna just lie about the whole thing. Imagine something important, like you're saying, with interest. Like,
yeah. And it's not until it affects you, or, directly, indirectly, that you understand that the news is full of shit and the media is full of shit. Like, when I've been in trouble for jokes and stuff like that, man, they go out and they say, this racist, this Islamophobe, this, and it's just like, no, this comedian who's saying, like, shit to make people laugh is saying dumb shit to make people laugh. None of these things are true.
Well, that's not a story for him.
No, that's it. And you learn that. And my old man was involved he built the Rugby League Players Association. So it looked after all the players. It was like a union. And because the News Limited had a control of the media, basically, the same companies had the control of the media, they would bash him every day in the papers.
Legit.
Every day. Yeah. And so people would form their opinion from that. And the News Limited and those type of people, they knew that. Yeah. And that's why they do it. They control politics, they control public opinion, and that's why a lot of people are just fucked. They got no idea what they're talking about. Sure. Because, also people are, they're digging holes all day. Yeah. They're fucking working on an office they hate. They got she's working as a receptionist.
I was actually just thinking that. It's so like, maybe they're not, it's not like they're to blame. You know what I mean?
No,
they're getting on with their life. They're getting fed this thing. Why not believe it?
Who has time to question things?
That's right.
Like that, and that is a genuine problem. I think podcasts help, because you get to have this long-form conversation with someone like you, someone who is a molecular biologist or someone who is a political scientist. Yep. And you can listen to all those and pick what you want to listen to, and you find out the real story, what's actually happened. And like people like Kyle Rittenhouse in America, the dude who shot those kids, well, not just kids, but they were, adults. One turned out to be a pedophile, like convicted pedophile, child rapist. Another one was had a massive rap sheet, all this type of stuff.
Is that the lad that was getting chased? And he turned around.
The AR-15 sort of thing. And he just was acquitted.
Yeah. Oh, was he?
Yeah. In America. And people were blowing up. So that story was, he was at a Black Lives Matter rally and everyone just assumed that he killed black people. But it was 3 white people. And one of the white dudes.
Why did they assume that?
Well, because it was the Black Lives Matter thing, and no one, and basically everyone was just like, he's killed 3 Black Lives Matter protests, and they ran with that story.
Oh, that's it.
Now, I don't know if they said they were African American people in the news articles, but everyone assumed that that's what it was, and no one corrected it. So everyone hated this kid, straight up hated him. They said he was a Republican, so obviously the left hated him. They said he was a gun rights activist, so everyone hated him. They said he crossed county lines to go state lines or whatever, when in reality he just lived over the border, right, Lordy? No, doesn't matter. So he lived just over it's like, you know, you living down the road and the border's in the middle and I come over and help you out. Like that type of thing.
Yeah.
One of the dudes was attacking him with a fucking skateboard, hit him on the head, even though he had an AR-15.
Yeah.
The other dude had a gun pointed at him.
I've seen that. Like, I'm not in depth with the story, but like from the video that I've seen and normal observation, he's getting chased by a bunch of people. Some of them got guns. Even if they don't, they're trying to do him harm. That's clear and it's not an argument. You can see it happening.
Self-defense.
And he has a gun. If he can't shoot those people, then what's a gun for?
Yeah. You're going to fucking hit him with the butt.
What's the point of it? Is it just the gun's just for scare tactic, and if you don't scare him, or you just gotta let him kill you?
Yeah,
the gun scare tactic didn't work. So, I don't know. It's different, bro. Like if he's getting chased, if he's chasing people, automatically in my head he's guilty. If you're chasing someone, you shoot him. If you're getting chased and lads are attacking you and you shoot him, then why sell guns if you can't do that?
Yeah, it's not like he shot him in the back. These people were coming at him, you know,
on him.
He
shot him off him.
Yeah, you watch the video. He's on his back.
That's right. And anyone who can see that video and can't see that, like I said, I don't care. I don't really care about any of those stories. Like what they do in America, they're cracked. But just from basic, if you can't see that, then that's bias. Yeah,
it is. And politics is their religion now.
Yeah,
you know, they've stepped away from Christianity, from any type of religion. You know, obviously there still is it's quite a religious country, but their politics they're just balls deep. They just like, if you're left, you're with me.
It's like gangs now, eh?
Yeah.
It's like street gangs.
Yeah.
Like the commoner is part of a gang.
It's like you will fight to the death for your gang.
That's cracked.
It's and part of the gang is sort of like, you know, the initiation process for the left side of politics is you change your pronouns on Instagram and all that type of shit. That's how you do it. But yeah, man, can we go back to the school?
Yeah.
What happened there? Can you take us through where you were in your life and what happened at that school?
So the point in my life, I was, 14, 15 years old, and I just got kicked out of Glebe High, which is a school where I grew up in the city. So I'd gone to the last school that would accept me because I was too young to be completely kicked out of school. There's some law, under 15, under 16, whatever. They sent me over to this nice area to go to the school. I was continuing my scallywag behavior, stealing. I got dobbed in. I don't know by who. I got dobbed in by someone for stealing a phone or a Discman or something that you steal back in 2001. And I thought, I'm going to make a statement, right? My intention was just to go back to the school. The next day I was suspended. After a tussle with the teachers. So I wanted to go back to the school with a knife and find out who done it. And just in front of all the kids, hold it to him, put it to his, whatever I'd planned on doing. Something scary so no one dobbed on me in the future. I went back there with the knife, went to the class. So I had no idea who this kid was, right? But I'm going to find him. Went back to the classroom, pulled the knife out. Everyone's like, nah, saying the usual, can I swear?
Of course.
All right. Saying, who the fuck gave me up for stealing the phone, blah, 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 I'll kill you, mate. You know what I mean? No one, you know what I mean? No, obviously no one put their hand up for it. So I ended up going classroom to classroom till I found this kid. No one put their hand up for it, obviously. There was one lad, right? I had, wasn't a mate, but he was in the same class. So we got along. And he'd taken it like a joke. All right. Because I was a bit of a cracked kid. So I'd always do crazy shit. Yeah. And he'd just taken this as a funny thing. And he, in front of the 4th or 5th classroom I'd gone in, he'd taken upon himself to go joke around. Yeah, I'd done it. You know what I mean? But I'm in a position now where I've made like a lot of fuss. So if he can say that and I don't do anything, then the whole thing just crumbles and I look like a dickhead. You know what I mean? So even though he was a mate, I'd gone to him, grabbed him, anyway, put the knife to his neck. Teachers are hustling, bustling. I kicked a few teachers. And then I'd heard on the radio that they'd evacuate in a school, like some type of terrorist thing. Obviously, when I'm a kid, I'm thinking this is a joke. And obviously from the way I grew up and that was nothing to just be putting knives to people and this and that. But you can understand to normal people, this is a big thing.
100%.
So I heard on the speaker, the principal evacuating the school. So I seen in the corridors, everyone's like running. You know what I mean? So I thought I'll join it. Come out the class and I put my knife away. I planned to end it there, right? I planned to end the whatever it was there. And I just started like evacuating. I was just going to go line up in the assembly and pretend nothing happened in my young mind, you know what I mean? So I'd come down the stairs and the whole school was in that assembly area. Yes, I was in year 8, I think, and it was like from year 7 to year 12, the entire school. And they were all down there. I was walking down the stairs and the principal called me out, you know, like I'm the attacker. And he looked at me and he goes, "Stop it, just go away, put the knife down," you know, and he made the whole school look at me. So in that moment, the whole school's looking at me and I just thought, I'm going to go on with this. It's another one of those things, well, I can't stop here. You know what I mean? So I never planned this stuff. I just, you know, it come about. So I pulled the knife out, started telling everyone I was going to kill him. Whoever gave me up, I'm going to kill you, same stuff. And everyone started scattering. Long story short, I was chasing a few people through the streets. I was fly kicking a few people. Not trying to do harm, more like a fun thing. Went a few streets. I went on for about 20 minutes, went a few streets. One of the teachers had found some adult council workers, you know what I mean? So I sent up the street, adults running towards me. I'm a 14-year-old kid. It doesn't matter how big my knife is or how big my sword is. You're not bashing adults, you know what I mean? 100%. So I seen 4 adults walking towards me or running towards me with shovels. So I like threw my knife and pretend nothing happened. And I just went walking, like try to throw off like, oh, I think he's up there. But I'd been pointed out. So they bashed me, held me down to the coppers car. The news showed up first, funnily enough. Yeah, really? This was my first time ever arrested. So a young kid. And I was on the floor, you know, after a couple shovels to the head. And I just seen like Channel 9 rock up, Channel 7 rock up. No coppers yet. And I was just like, what? I didn't see it as being such a big thing. It ended up being a big thing. First time arrested, yeah. First time in boys' homes.
How do you look back on that now? Is it something that scares you, embarrasses you? What do you feel about it?
Bad as this to say, I just see that because I didn't hurt anyone.
Yeah.
I hurt some people's feelings. There's some teachers that put in for PTSD and this and that, naturally. I see it as a funny thing. You know, I just see it as a funny thing. It's different if I went around legit stabbing innocent people. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, yeah, I just like, it's funny because during my last pre-sentence report, the last ever time I was in jail, I had this special team of psychiatrists coming out to do the pre-sentence report. And it was actually that same response that got me diagnosed or along the ways to get me diagnosed as a psychopath. Because I had said to them, I feel that this is a funny thing. And they're looking at me like, how can you find something so horrific, so funny? And I'm like, bro, relax. I'm just a kid running around. Like, it was fun. I talked to people that were there. They remember it as a funny day.
Really?
Yeah. Like they know it's just, I don't know. I know a lot of people listening will think like, that's crazy. It's disgusting that you could say that's funny, but I don't know. I remember there's a funny day. There's probably a few teachers that don't.
Well, I guess it comes down to your intention too.
Yeah.
If you never intended to stab anyone, then it's a different thing, as you said, like turning up and actually wanting to cause real harm to people.
Yeah.
Like you just wanted to scare people, right? And you wanted to prove to yourself or prove to other people that you don't fuck with me sort of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe this is where, you get to situations where in America, like everyone's got a gun.
Yeah.
Do you think if you were in America, you would have gone with a gun? Potentially.
Probably.
Yeah. Well, everyone's got it.
Probably.
It's in everyone's fucking cupboard.
You wouldn't do well with a knife there. I'd probably get shot. Yeah. So I'd probably have to go for a gun.
And maybe that's what happens in these high schools. Like people are like, I want to prove to these people who have been bullying me, picking on me, whatever, that you don't fuck with me anymore.
Probably.
And they turn up. And I've spoken to people who have been like really badly bullied at school.
Yeah.
And they said, if I had a gun, I probably would have ended up like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you're a kid, you don't know shit.
Yeah,
100%. You might think you're a tough or whatever. You turn up and you might do something dumb, particularly if you've got a gun in your hands.
For sure. Yeah.
I mean, that's scary.
Yeah.
But
I guess, like you said, the intentions, it means a lot.
Intention is everything.
Like when I was chasing, catching up to the lads I was in the class with, like I could have, while everyone was running, I could have stabbed 100 people. I was kicking them in the back and swearing at them. Like they were next to me. I was like pushing people and that, like, yeah.
Yeah. But I think most schools have, unless in the last 10 years or so, or maybe when everyone's at school, they have a situation where someone comes with a knife or someone's doing something dodgy or whatever.
Definitely.
And you know, vast majority, probably every time that I can think of in Australia, nothing's happened.
Yeah.
People are just, you know, there's kids that are, for whatever reason, you know, maybe they've had a tough upbringing, maybe they're really angry or really sad.
Yeah.
You know, they go out and they want to hurt people. Or maybe they don't want to hurt people. They just want people to feel how they feel.
Yeah.
It's interesting to look at from an outside point of view. What brings a kid? How old were you when this happened?
I think I was 14, 2001.
So what
Might
happens?
have been 15.
What happens in someone's life to lead them to a point where they feel it's a normal thing or a funny thing to take a knife to school?
Yeah. I guess a lot of things have to be normalized in their life, definitely.
You know, we all start off as babies, and then the way we're molded dictates the people we become, and it takes a strong person to break that. You know, and that's why I really wanted to have you on, and I wanted to say, like, what this dude's doing right now. He's got a book out. People love him. Like, you're not doing this fucking horrible shit.
Yeah,
you know, you're not scaring people as much.
Yeah,
perhaps maybe your lyrics. I don't know. Maybe there's some rap battles or stuff, but I think that's a really important thing. Like, you have the strength within your own mind to break that mold.
Yeah.
Was there any points in your life, and you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but in your youth where you think that really molded you to be a person who could do those things or would end up in jail?
Definitely. During my upbringing, I grew up, my parents were what you would call street people. And by that, I don't mean homeless. I mean criminals that hang around the streets. Scallywags, everyone, you know what I mean? That were my parents. My two idols in my life, my father, who was gone my whole life, the only thing that I knew of him before the age of 10 was anyone who was older than me would always come up to me and go like, your dad, he's the best getaway driver. He never got caught. Like, they just painted him to be some crazy getaway driver. So that's all I knew of my dad. Steals cars and he's a mad getaway driver, the best in Sydney, whatever they reckon. And then the only other man I had in my life was my mum's younger brother, who was like my older brother, 6-7 year difference. We shared bunk beds together. He was my older brother. And we were both in the care of my mum. He was a semi-famous thief / heroin addict through the 90s. That was straight in front of me. I shared a room with him. I knew I'd drive in stolen cars with him. I'd watch him do his crimes. I'd watch him inject. And these were the only two men that I knew. This was around the Marrickville area, which is not a fully criminal area in Sydney. And that was the first 10 years of my life. And then maybe at the age of 12, you combine that upbringing with me moving to what at the time had to be the worst part of Sydney, to the Redfern Glebe area, where it is completely normal for everyone there to be a bank robber, armed robber, ram raider, heroin addict. That was just normal. It's like in maybe a different area, it's normal to play footy and smoke cigarettes and drink at the pub. Yep. This was what you do in Redfern. So you combine those two. Plus, I always had this weird, I don't know, I was never a normal kid. I was always the type of kid that was like burning things down and playing with knives and stuff. And you combine all of that, and I just got chucked into the playground of Redfern, Waterloo, Glebe, and I went hard. And so by the time I was 12, 13, it was completely normal to steal things or to stab people. And like, I'd stabbed my friend in the playground in primary school just to show off for girls.
Really?
So it was nothing. This was when I was like 10. So it was nothing for me 4 years later to scare some people with a knife. I'd already stabbed people. So going to a school just to scare people and have a laugh was nothing. So there you go. It's what's normalized to you.
And what else does one expect when someone is surrounded constantly by that? You're molded by your parents and by the people around you, and anyone playing a figure as a father figure or anyone like that. You know, you're molded by that, and that's the person you become. And good, bad, indifferent, this is how you're going to follow. And as I said before, unless you break that at some point, unless you have some introspection where you break that, and if you're smart enough and you're brave enough to break it. But I look at where I'm from, and my old man, businessman, all that type of stuff. Mum stayed at home to look after the kids. I have an autistic brother, so she's his full-time carer.
Yep.
Always there, always looking after us. And we're so lucky to have that. And there's people at the very same time that I'm living under a roof where I get meals and, my bed made for me and all that type of shit. who were doing it tough. I remember I went out to I think it was Waterloo Station, maybe Woolloomooloo Station, with Brad Fittler, who is the New South Wales coach.
Yep.
I was involved in the city country. I was the comedian on their bus because my old man was their defensive coach and I was the comedian on the bus. It's the fucking worst gig I've ever had in my life. It's terrible. They ended up chanting, "Get your cock out," and I was like, "Okay, I'm getting no laughs, so let's do it."
No
so
way.
You just got to do it. Like
Footy players were chanting
all the
that?
boys are just
They're
like
sus.
I know. But it's what you do. What else do you do if you got a whole thing of blokes just going?
No, it's not your fault, but the fact they're chanting that.
The fact that I had to drive 2 hours to get on this bus, and I thought I was just going to do a show at a pub, and they give me the microphone, like this little square microphone on a bus that's got the cord this long, and then I'm bombing hard, and they just go, "Get your cock out," and I was like, "Fuck it, let's go." I need at least half a laugh, so this will do. But I did that, and we went out before my cock was out. We went out to Woolloomooloo Station, and they were involved in helping out the homeless people there.
It would have been Woolloomooloo then.
And that's right near the cop shop, right? It's actually built into
Talbot.
The
Matthew Talbot Hostel.
Right.
Yep.
And so we went in there, and so we're starting to cook the barbie, and there's all some people who are on the streets. They're there, and all of a sudden, like families just start coming out with kids, and they've all got it's winterish.
Yeah.
They've got blankets on. 6 years old, 4 years old, little girls, little boys, walking the streets with their families, and they've got nothing.
Yeah.
So they've got nothing. They might get some Centrelink or whatever, but that's not going to get him into a house. Housing Commission, the wait lists are massive. These people are living on the street, whether or not it's a mental health issue, a drug issue. I think they're one and the same a lot of the time.
Yep.
People hiding from things like anxiety and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. I've never taken heroin or anything like that, but I imagine the withdrawals really enhance anxiety, and you just need to to have a hit. And that's what gets people stuck. And all these people who are living such a different life to me, they're walking out, we're giving out snags, and all the footy players are giving out their gear and all that nice stuff. That's what you see on the telly before they're chanting it. 19-year-old me to get my cock out. But yeah, it's such a foreign thing for most people to see, and most people listening to this have never seen anything like that. Never seen a young person on the. I know when we were in Melbourne earlier this year. My partner Claire, she sat down with this lady who was living on the streets, and she, instead of just giving her some money or whatever, she went and bought her some lunch, and they sat down and had a chat, and she got some things for a dog, the parasite tablets and stuff for the dog and all that type of stuff, and had a chat to her. And man, people are in a tough place, and how else do people grow up when they're in that situation? Of course, they're going to see violence all the time. So violence is normal. For me, if a kid went to my school with a knife, like, holy shit, that's the craziest thing ever. For other people, that's a normal, maybe not a normal day, but that's like a normal reaction when someone's angry.
For sure.
They grab a knife.
Yeah, like I said, like just a funny thing.
Yeah. You're just trying to fuck with people.
Yeah, really.
And and I think for a lot of people listening to that story, they might be like, dude.
Yeah.
But it depends where you live.
100%.
Depends where you come from.
100%.
And when I first heard about you, and I first started seeing Instagram stories and videos and hurus and all this type of stuff, when you really started to gain some traction, I ran into a mate of mine who has a business where he helps young Aboriginal kids get trades and stuff like that and get jobs. And we were talking about you, and I said, so he spent a bit of time in Redfern with his job. He said, so I said, what's this bloke like? And he goes, mate, this is the type of guy who will walk down the street and go over to some blokes or some businessmen and say, come on, into this cafe. Come on, into the cafe. You got to get this, you got to get that, helping out the mum and pup stores. Like, it seems like you're a type of person that actually tries to help your area rather than hinder it.
I try to, I definitely don't try to hinder my area. Yeah, I do try, and the biggest way I try and help, and it comes out on Instagram, so it gets projected to the whole country. But I'm directly talking to the kids in my area in it's a mixture between documenting what I've done and what happened. And in any way I tell the truth, and it makes a lot of people hate me. But I think the biggest thing that I can do, I worry about kids, like legit. The biggest thing that I can do is speak the truth from someone, from my experience. There's no one on these social media platforms that, one, have the life and been through everything that I've been through, and two, can articulate it and are engaging. And it makes a lot of people hate me because I talk down. I don't talk positively about, if you ask me about specific crimes that I've done, I think they're hilarious in hindsight, right? I'm not going to sit here and cry. That's where a lot of people hate me. I talk about things in a factual way. I don't tell people to do things, right? I talk about the things that I've done in a factual way, and I'm not sorry. I've spent my life as in punished, looking at walls, and I got what I needed to get. So I don't owe anyone anything. I don't need no apology. So I just tell it straight. That's where the confusion is. So people see me as like someone who loves crime. But if you listen deeply to my videos, like I'll put videos out all the time. Like the other day I put out a video about like trying to appreciate the little things in life. And there'll be so many people who will comment under it and say, you know what, I hated you up until now, but this video really makes sense. And I'm thinking, I've been making videos like that for 2 years. You just choose to see what you want to see. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so what I do is a lot of the people in my own area hate me. A lot of the people in Woolloomooloo hate me. A lot of the boys in jail hate me. A lot of people in gangs hate me because I tell the truth. Like I say, that's gronk shit. It's full gronk shit. You know what I mean? And they don't like that. They don't like that someone come from that life, that someone come out like lived the life in jail and lived the life on the streets and was like, whatever you want to call me, someone who was a known criminal in jail or something. Yeah, whatever. And that says the truth about it's putrid. That's gronk shit. And everyone involved in it are gronks. And I say that, and you know what? And it puts me at risk. Because the people that then I'm talking about, you know what I mean? Like it's very realistic now that I was sweet. I spent my life in jail. I was a somebody in jail. I was towards the later years of my life, most pods that I was in, I was not that I ever get involved in gangs or trying to do business, but I was the man in the pod. I'll punch in. All right, that was in my later years. Now, if I go back to jail, it's very realistic that the lads in there will hate my guts.
Yeah.
If you look at my videos, it's just, but that's putrid. They're gronks. You know what I mean? Like that life is gronk shit. And and I think I'm the most powerful voice to do that for kids. And I don't think there's any more powerful thing that I can do. Like, yeah, I can go to pick up a few kids and I can take them to train and take them to footy. Or I can address the entire country who look up to people like me and tell them the truth about the life and not glamorize it. You know what I mean? And that far exceeds anything that I could physically do. You're right. When I see kids, I stop to talk, and I always I love the younger lads in my hood, you know what I mean? And homeless people and heroin addicts and just junkies in general, I feel comfortable with these people. These are the people I grew up as and with, and I'm more comfortable with these people than what I call normal civilians. So I do what you do. But I don't see that as my power. I see what I just said as the power and what I try to achieve.
And you do have that power. Like I could, or maybe not someone like me, but like let's say if you're a kid at school and your principal's like, no, drugs are bad. No, you don't want to get involved in drugs and you don't want to do this. No one's going to listen to that.
Of course not.
But you get someone who is basically someone who a kid looks up to and goes, okay, they're legit. They know what they're talking about, and doesn't glamorize a lifestyle. You know, that can change someone's life.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen from one video.
No.
It happens from a lifetime of almost motivation to better themselves.
Yeah.
With let's look at the drug war. What is a way to deal with drug crime? Do you think the best way to do it is to decriminalize everything and have the ability to, if you want to get heroin, like I know that they did this study in a European country where you were just able to get heroin, you had to go check yourself into a facility, and rather than like giving out methadone, they'd give you heroin.
Yep.
And most of the people, like a high majority of the people, or a vast majority rather, were able to not only get off heroin, but turn their lives around because they weren't at a point where they had to go and, steal a VCR or whatever to pay for it. Mm-hmm. They were living in a comfortable apartment or whatever it happened to be, accommodation, and they were getting the drugs they needed to keep away the fucking demons. Yep. And they were able to better themselves, get themselves jobs. And a lot of these people actually got out of the vicious circle of drugs and were able to move on.
Yep.
I see kids getting arrested. I see, well, not just even kids, like young people getting arrested with drugs. Then they're thrown in jail. They meet more people in the drug life, and then that just becomes their life. Yeah. And then they're a career criminal. And, you know, maybe that's a petty criminal. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you do?
A lot of people will be surprised by my standpoint on this.
Yeah.
If you're going to ask me specifically what's the best way to deal with drug crime, then obviously decriminalizing everything makes no crime exist. So that's an instant fix for drug crime. Do I think that that's what's good for society? Absolutely not. I would, any day of the week, choose a society where we have to deal with drug crime than a society that says it's acceptable to use drugs. I'm completely against anybody using drugs, all right? I had been, when I got off drugs, I'd gone through a stage in my life where I was very judgmental onto people who use drugs because I'd got off all drugs. I'm 1 in a million. And from my perspective, it was simple because I'd done it. I didn't know how hard it was for people. So it's not a judgment on the people who are on drugs. But I think that to live in a society where we're going to say it's acceptable for people to be on ice and heroin, and I'm so far against that. I would rather we find better ways to deal with, and we're not going to solve it. We're not going to solve anything. To deal with drug crime, to think that what's the answer is to say, like, what's the answer to deal with violence? There's going to be at no point in humanity where there is no violence. And there's going to be no point in humanity where people aren't going to want to use substances to relieve themselves of whatever excuse they have. I'm on the total opposite. If it was up to me, there would be no cigarettes, there would be no alcohol, there would be no drugs. I think all of those things are poisonous for the human spirit. And although, the people who choose to use drugs, if you decriminalized it, it would make their life better. But I can guarantee you it would make a lot of people's life worse. You know, there's a lot of people who don't use drugs and don't use heroin, don't use ice, much like yourself, because you didn't grow up around it. So to fix the lives of those 4% of the population, to make their life easier by decriminalizing it, you're now exposing it to the other 96% of the population's kids who would have never seen it.
Fair.
So just by numbers, just by basic logic, there will be more people exposed to heroin and more heroin addicts, more people who would have sad and depressed and hopeless lives because of drug use.
Yeah. If you see mum and dad using it, then maybe you think down the track.
100%. It doesn't matter if they get it from a doctor. Heroin's heroin. You know, a junkie's a junkie. So like, I don't think it has any place. And like I said, I don't think substance use at all. Maybe that's an extremist, but I don't see substance use at all as acceptable.
I mean, I don't think anyone should be using drugs, particularly if you're someone who can't control yourself.
Yeah.
Like if you want to go out and have a couple of pingers on the weekend, whatever. A couple of lines of coke on the weekend, whatever. If you can do that and not do it at work, cool, right? But it's the same with alcohol or pain pills. Pain pills are massive.
Yep.
You know, everyone's on fucking pain pills. My brother went to...
And pot now.
And pot, yeah. My brother went and had his nose and deviated septum fixed. Playing footy, a couple of broken noses, affect his breathing, that type of shit. Gets it fixed, and they give him a couple of fucking... whatever the fucking main pain pill is.
Yeah.
Give him a couple of those.
Yeah.
And he's like, I didn't really need it.
Yeah.
He said, they gave me one, and they gave me like 4 to take home. I was like, fuck, it's a broken nose is sore. It hurts for a couple of days, but you don't need 4 fucking full nearly heroines.
Yeah. 100%.
And people are addicted to this shit.
Yeah.
I know there are some studies that show that people who take a lot of ibuprofen, now obviously ibuprofen isn't an issue, it's not very good for your gut and all that type of stuff, but people who take ibuprofen can actually cause phantom pain. And so if you have a lot of headaches and you take ibuprofen every single day, your body will start giving you headaches, so you take the drug.
No way.
Yeah.
Like a dependence.
Yeah. Drugs.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what drug it is, a drug is a drug.
And everything that gives will take.
Yeah.
It's just the law of, it's just like the law of conservation of energy. Anything that gives you something will take.
100%.
Yeah.
Like how shit do you feel after a big night on the sauce?
Yeah.
You feel terrible, but you enjoyed yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to give.
Yeah.
It's and I always think about like these mind games. You go, well, how can you fix these people? I think it comes down to, your upbringing, the people around you. But even then, sometimes if you have a great upbringing, someone can just have a wire crossed or whatever, have a mental health problem, and rather than turning to a therapist and antidepressants aren't great, but they're better than fucking smoking crack, all that type of stuff. people turn to things in times of need.
Yeah.
And someone's whole life can be a time of need, or they can have a moment where they're weak, and then their whole life has changed from that point.
Sure. Your upbringing is half the story.
Yeah.
It's your natural propensity to act in a certain way is, I would say, a larger part. And that's why you find people who can grow up in the ghetto and be normal, and people who can grow up in the nicest areas and become serial killers. So yeah, I think it's just more factors in your upbringing that push you towards something. But it's going to be yourself who chooses at the end of the day. But like we said, like normalizing something to someone just makes it more likely. It's not a decision. Yeah.
Something I've always been terrified of since I was a kid was jail. Always been just, I don't know why. I imagine it's a scary place, but I don't know why.
Yeah.
Let's say I go to jail tomorrow. What happens when you walk in for the first time?
What's the actual process?
Well, take me through the process. Take me through what it's like when they lock the cells at night, the people you meet in the first 3 or 4 days.
Times are very different now. The process is very sad and boring and long. That's the thing I hate the most about jail. You're going to go to a cop shop, you get bail refused, you're going to sit on a metal seat for hours and hours and hours, cold and hungry. You're going to go on a stinking jail truck to the closest courthouse the next day, very smelly. Something happens with people, I don't know. It's like as soon as they get locked up, they just let go of themselves. It's just completely normal for people in jail to not shower and not care about how the way they smell. I don't know what it is. I think it's just like
Sort of give up.
They give up,
yeah.
you know. It's just like, oh, I'm just a scumbag now, so I'm just going to act like a scumbag. That was my biggest notice in the difference between going from boys' homes to jail the first time. In boys' homes, different. Everyone's like normal, healthy. In jail, everyone's just like, and stink. It's funny as it is to say, but you're going to be with some smelly people in a truck very close. You're going to be breathing their farts. You're going to go to a concrete underground cell. It's very cold, nothing in there, barely any food. Bail refused. You're going to stay in some underground cell for 3 days, no light, TV that you can't hear. Another truck's going to come and get you, take you to the closest remand center. And you go through this process of getting checked in and like stamped and ticking this, and everything's taken off you. You're given a bag, and that's your entire existence. It's going to have 2 pairs of clothes, plastic bowl, plastics. That's, you know, and you're going to be chucked in a cell. The first cells, where obviously what would be receptions / transit cells, always going to be the least loved. So you can imagine what they look like. You're going to stay in there for about a week, waiting for your place to a pod or a wing that is medium term, where people can sit there and wait out their court dates, not long term, medium term. There's you're going to walk into a pod of about 60 people, all eyes on you when you walk in the gate. Same time every day, the same new 4 people come in that gate. If you're somebody, if you're a first timer in jail, you're not going to know a person in there. You're going to have not much worries other than a couple predators picking you for someone weak. If you're somebody of the streets with a history, there's a lot of worries. Where are you? Who's there? Who knows you? What have you done wrong? That's a very high risk time. You're going to go into that pod. You don't get to choose your cellmate initially. Another stinking person, and a lot of smells in jail. Believe me. That cell's not going to be very loved. Then you're going to wait until you make a friend in the wing. During the 4 hours a day you're allowed out, till you make a friend, you sometimes have some type of bond with, as shallow as it is, and you're going to try to get into a cell with him because you feel more secure and you've got a talking points with him. If you can you can beg the screws for a cell. They're lazy. They might give you a cell together. It'll take about 2 days of hustling them. Then you feel a bit better. Then it's the first time in what is up to that point 2-week process that you're sort of comfortable. After that 2 weeks, your numbers that you've put on your jail phone have come activated. So in that period, you're with someone you're sort of comfortable with. You've cleaned your cell. You don't own anything yet. You've got no TV, no radio, nothing. So 20 hours a day, you're just like looking at each other. Your numbers come on your phone. It'll be the first time you've talked to any family or loved ones, other than your reception call, which is, all right, I got bail refused. I'm in MRRC. I love you. Book a visit. So this is the first proper conversation with anyone you care about, your family alive, there, bang. And then that's it. It's a bit of politics, not so much anymore. It's mainly jail now is just mainly a big argument over drugs. That's all it is. Yeah. Before, back in when I was a kid, When I went there, I was going, wouldn't call them war zones, right? I'm not trying to exaggerate, but there were racial wars. It's very divided. You choose what race you're with. You don't get to choose. It's chose upon you. Or shut the fuck up and sit in the middle and don't like talk to any of the races or you get bashed. And if you're part of one of these races, don't talk to another. Otherwise, yeah. So it was like very tense. That's your first month in jail. Wow. Yeah. It's putrid.
Yeah.
The thing I find the most putrid about that is just like nothing. Just hours. Like imagine emptying this garage and just put a mattress in the corner. Not even a radio. You got nothing but a mattress in the corner and a toilet in that corner, and they both stink. And just sitting here for weeks. Imagine that. That's the pain. Nothing else is the pain. The scary people are not the pain. The screws attitude is not the pain. The food is not the pain. That's the pain. You do that for years and years and years. After a while, a few months, you got a TV. So you better love TV or you got nothing.
How do you expect someone to go into jail for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, 10 years, and then walk out and be anything close to normal?
I'm cooked.
Yeah.
I'm so cooked.
How could you not be?
But I'm cooked. Like, it's like, but I've been doing this since 14.
Yeah.
I mean, like, don't get me wrong, juvie has more activities, play footy, this and that.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing.
Well, they're trying to sort of save you in juvie,
Sort
aren't
of,
they?
yeah. They're trying to show you a better life.
Yeah.
You do art classes and stuff like this. Jail, just shut up and sit in that yard.
Yeah.
Sit in your cell. Years and years and years. And a lot of thinking time. And, right, if you can do that for 3 months and come out normal, I'd like to record the first conversation of 3 months in your garage. You'll come out like,
oh yeah,
yeah.
It's borderline torture.
Yeah,
and particularly when a lot of people are in jail for like petty shit, like whether it's drink driving, obviously very dangerous, yada yada. But should they be in there with a murderer? If you're selling drugs or pills or whatever, should you be in there with a murderer? Should you have different things to do? Like maybe selling drugs very dangerous, all that type of stuff. You might kill someone. But should you be in there with a rapist?
Yeah.
What's the biggest change for you moving from being locked up and then just sort of cast out into the world? What hurts you the most? What's the biggest pain, do you think?
The biggest pain. So not the biggest struggle, the biggest pain would be to find my place in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really I have this thing. I'm Spanian, and it's like a lot of people will see this as a big thing. I'm like legitimately like a national celebrity. It doesn't matter where I was here in Newcastle last night. It's just people running at me for photos and this and that. People struggle their whole life to get into this position. This was just put upon me. I don't know how this happened. I just jumped on, made my songs and just be myself, and it's put upon me. I didn't put no effort into this, and I don't have this is not my life's goal. Do you know what I mean? But it's mad what I mean. This is what you see. What you don't see is, and I make videos about this, is just me completely lost in the world. No skills, no career, no job, no education. I can't. And by no skills, like I don't even mean basic skills. Like I try my best. It is a struggle. I'm getting better at it. It's a struggle to stay out of jail. Just forget how much you love money. Don't start a drug run. Forget how much you hate people looking at you and telling you what to do. Don't stab anyone. These were for a few years constant efforts, big struggles. I overcome them. But I'm left lost. I have this, like I said, I have this thing. These are my biggest pains. It's like I have this all this stuff to do, podcast, this and that, all this certain amount of money that I can spend, whatever it is, and I just walk around by myself. I'm legit. Yeah, I walk around. I still walk around like a prisoner. And I'm not saying that to be cool. It's a sad thing. I walk the streets. I live in Redfern, near Redfern Station, between Redfern and Central, and I just like pop out in the morning. I speak to my manager like, what do I have to do today? And they're like, nothing today, but you got this interview tomorrow. So I'll just walk around by myself the whole day, and I'll go and get a black coffee just like I drink in jail. And I'll just look at people living their lives. And I'll walk home and play a bit of a video game. I love Fortnite. It's one thing I have in my life, and that's it. Like, if you're asking me what is my pain, that's my biggest pain. I'm a 35-year-old man. I have no idea what's going on. So whatever happens with me in this career of Spanian, I'm really invested in setting myself up a life that allows me freedom and fits in with my strengths and weaknesses. And that's where I'm at right now.
And you've basically had, for a lot of people, they find themselves in their 20s and you've had that put on hold, and kicked back, not even just on hold, but like, you've been pushed back, instead of taking 2 steps forward, you've taken 5, 10 back to figure out who you are in this world. Yeah. And I think it's an existential crisis for most people at some point to work out, where do I belong? Like, even for me, like, I've been quite successful with my comedy and stuff, and you still have imposter syndrome. You're like, oh, what if this ends tomorrow?
Yeah.
That drives me.
Yeah.
Because I don't want this to end. I want to provide for my family. Yeah. And I want to be able to, and I'm also terrified about going back and working in a job that I hate. Yeah. Because, you get used to the money and you get used to this and you get used to doing it your way. Mm-hmm. I don't understand how someone can go to jail for a long period of time. Well, not like a mad long, but like long, fair time. And then be expected to not learn anything in there that will give you options when you get out.
Yeah.
Like, you can't walk out and walk into a coffee shop and go, mate, here's my resume. Where have you been for the last 8 years?
Yeah.
Oh, I've been inside.
Yeah.
No.
And some may say that, but what you can do is you can go to TAFE and you can learn how to make coffee and then you can start from the bottom. But what they don't understand is that, like, the mentality that's created in there for a lot of people, a lot of strong people, doesn't allow you to do that. Mm. So it's not only about the time that you haven't done that and the history that you don't have. It's what it's taken away from you that allows you to do that in the future. And that's what I see as what being institutionalized is. A lot of people see the movies and they have this one blanket approach to what someone institutionalized is. And that is a simple question. Do you want to get out of jail? And if someone says, no, I love jail, that means you're institutionalized. And if someone says, no, I can't wait to get out, well, you're not institutionalized. And that's what you see in movies. It's nowhere near the truth. I've been in jail with people who have been in 32, 27 years. They're dying to get out. Are they institutionalized? They're beyond institutionalized.
Yeah.
They're pretty much prison chairs. Like that, they are nothing and never going to be anything but a prisoner. And you let them out, like, for lack of a better word, these lads, what you will perceive them to be freaks. But if you ask them, do you want to get out? They'll kill you to get out.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, it's the people who haven't done much jail. They've done 2-3 years of jail. You ask them, do you want to get out? They're the tough guys that say, I don't care. I like jail.
Really?
So it's actually the realist opposite way to what you see in the movies. Mm. But it's back to what you were saying. I feel it's more what it takes away from you when you become institutionalized. When the institution becomes you, when the way you think, the way you walk, the way you talk, and what you expect out of life is built from the institution, that's institutionalized, then that comes very easy for some people, harder for some others. Like, I've done 13 years, but I feel like by the time I was already out of juvenile justice, I'd done about 3 years altogether in juvenile justice. I was well institutionalized. You ask me, I wasn't going to be nothing but a prisoner. Or I'll peacefully coexist in the outside world like I do now. Yeah.
Well, it's psychological abuse to an extent. Like, it's if you're in a relationship where your husband beats you, even if it's for 2 years, like, for the rest of your life, that's going to weigh on your mind. Or if you have a traumatic experience, it's going to weigh on your mind, and you're never going to be quite normal.
Yeah.
You're never going to get back to baseline. You can put in all these things, and this is something that you will deal with for the rest of your life, and things that have gone wrong in my life, it's things that I will deal with, and everyone's got their own issues, obviously. You have to find a way to live with that, and I think what people don't or they can't grasp is that the only thing that heals is time. It takes time to break someone, and it takes time to rebuild someone. Like, how long have you been out for now?
I've been out for almost 5 years.
So, maybe that's another 5 years, and then you're a completely different person.
Maybe. Hopefully.
But it's about really just fucking head down, ass up, work hard, and doing the things you're doing.
Yeah.
You got a book out.
Yeah.
You got music going, podcast going. People enjoy you. People want to be around you. That's great. And that will lead to really positive outcomes if you can stick with it and do what you do.
Yeah.
And I think that's how you break the cycle of living on the street, having kids living on the street,
Yeah.
them having kids living on the street or being involved in the street.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously I'm a massive outsider on this. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. From what I see, you know, the only way to break the psychological barriers that people have is by breaking them.
Yeah. I think like my perspective on it is that like we're all cast into a world that we didn't ask for. All right. We're all cast in a world that laws exist that we didn't agree with, and we didn't sign anything to agree with them, in a structure where the day is designed for things that we didn't choose to participate in. But that's the way it is. And anyone in my position, worse, lesser position, but along the same lines, the way I see it is just that if you can have a bit of self-preservation, right? If you can just do the things that keep you healthy and keep you out of jail. First of all, that's what you need to concentrate on, a very selfish standpoint, right? You don't go from being someone who's lived a life like mine to being Mother Teresa. You don't do it. Don't try to do it, right? Just have a bit of self-preservation and you will feel lost for a long time. And then once you achieve that, then just start to put a bit of good energy out there. And again, it can be selfish, good energy. I'm not saying go and start cooking meals for people and this and that. I know that's always the go-to when people, you know, ask, oh, how do I feel better about myself? Go and help people. People say that have never helped a person in their life. But it's put a good energy out there for yourself. You know what I mean? Invest a little bit in yourself. Even if it's one thing that you like, try to get good at it and be positive about it. Because even the attitude towards it, it helps. You know what I'm saying? And when you've had self-preservation and then put a bit of good energy out there for yourself, good things will happen, and you'll slowly, without even effort, without even knowing, you'll find a place in the world, you know, and you'll start to look at once you find a place in the world, you'll start to look at the world not as your enemy, but as something that you can be part of. And you'll find out that there's people out there who actually like you, because we're not used to that. You're not used to, like, when I meet someone, I'm not used to them like, this person actually likes you. I'm like, fuck off, bro. But there's people out there who actually like people, you know? Not everyone hates everyone. And when you put that energy into yourself, you attract those type of people, and all of a sudden you have a place in the world. Then when you have a place in the world, you become happier. Then one day, if you want to, become Mother Teresa. Yeah. That's the process that I see.
I run my entire life off the attitude that it's all about small wins, incremental successes.
Yeah.
You know, you getting out and not stabbing someone, that's a small win. You know, everything that you do from this point and everything that I've ever done has all been about small wins. When I built my YouTube channel, right, I focused on Newcastle first. Started making videos about Newcastle. Then I started making videos about New South Wales, and then Australia, and then the world.
Yep.
And that's how I grew.
Nice.
Because it was all about, like, if I go out there and I'm going to go, no, I'm going to become viral, I'm going to do this worldwide.
Yeah.
You're going to get disappointed. You're going to not work as hard, and you're going to fuck around, and then you're going to give up.
True.
But if you have an achievable goal that you know you can hit, and then you have a plan for what to do after, then that's how you become successful with whatever you want to do. Yep. I mean, I think it's almost like you've walked out of a war. But we were talking about these helmets here and the people's lives that wore these helmets. Yep. There's a German one, an Australian one, an American one from World War II. These guys, if they came home, had their lives changed. I know Claire, my partner's grandfather, fought in World War II, came home terrified of thunder. Whole life changed. Couldn't deal with thunder, like full panic just because of the experience that he had. And it's almost like you've walked out of a war. Like
a very slow-paced war.
Yeah.
But very similar in a lot of ways.
You got high anxiety levels when you're in there, cortisol's through the roof. You've got nothing to, you know, I assume nothing to do all day. You're just constantly tense.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're expected to walk out into the world and just be free.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. And that's why the recidivism rate is through the roof throughout the world, not just here.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, America, if you've been in jail once, chances of you going back very, very high because you just fall back into your regular life. What you were doing before, you haven't learned anything. You're just going, you've had a timeout and then you've gone back to hitting your brother. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's tough, man.
Yeah.
But tell me about this book. Why write a book right now? You're 35. Why right now?
Initially, it come from the interest and the demand for me. So it was naturally just built off that. It's people very interested in my story. People people interested for shallow reasons, funny, interesting. People more interested for bigger reasons. Everything you explain, the achievements and what I've overcome and stuff like that. So I thought it's just very natural to write a book at this point. You know, instead of just telling everyone everything about my life. Obviously, there's things for YouTube. They're very intense, very entertaining things. But I'm not going to go on YouTube, and people want to know the background, you know. And to a lot of people, that's the most important stuff. I don't feel that has a place in YouTube videos. And so when I was 7,
it's a different experience reading it too.
Yeah,
because you take something in, and you can read a page in this book and sit back and go, fuck. You don't get that on YouTube. You don't sit back and go, you don't pause it and go, you really, you simmer on something. But in a book, you can really, and you're making up in your own head what you sort of try to envisage what you were talking about at this moment. And it sort of gives you a different perspective on what you're actually talking about. I think that's really important. Is there an audiobook version?
There is.
Do you read it?
No, I do. I have parts of it. So there's bonus between chapters. There's parts where I break things down and get into details in my point. And then there's a professional that I think they decided that my voice and my mannerisms are entertaining. Yeah. But 6 hours of it, it's no, just get someone normal to read it.
I know it probably would have been a pain in the ass to read 6 hours of it, but I reckon it would have been fucking great to have just you.
There's a lot of people a lot of comments please read the audiobook. It's nah, there's bits of me between.
Yeah. Yeah. And how did you go about writing it?
Oh, the process of, so obviously the author's name, Christopher Kevin Al, probably said his name wrong.
No, it is.
Yeah. We call him 24 Karat Kev. But he's the author. So I sat down with him over a 2-month period, just diving deep on records, getting recorded, and explain my whole life. And he'd go back and he'd find the points that the next day would come in and go more into deep. So it was 6 hours a day over a 2-month period. So it was a lot of talking, but that's easy for me.
Yeah.
If I was to sit there and write it with a type, it was never coming out. I'm not going to sit there and write things down, but I could talk for hours.
Yeah. Well, it's a skill. Writing a book is a very strange skill that most people don't have.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do it at the moment.
Yeah.
And I'm fuck, man.
It's hard.
It's hard.
I wouldn't even have a crack.
I'm used to writing stand-up or writing videos and that type of stuff, and that's completely different. Well, the videos are different to the stand-up, and the stand-up's different to the book and the whole fucking thing. Yeah. But it's one of these skills that you learn, because you could potentially, in another 35 years, release another book. Yeah. And, you could write it over that period of time, and people could, you never know. You might not have anyone on Instagram then. I might not, all that type of stuff. Things change. Yeah. But people will be interested in following up on your life story.
Sure.
I wanted to ask, to go back on a point. When you walk into jail, into the yard or into the cell block, wherever it happens to be, and people sort of notice you for that moment, if it's me walking in, what do I need to be fearful of? How do I need to act? Well, if you're talking to someone right now that's going to jail on Monday, what gives off the best vibe to keep you safe?
Just don't. I think the most important thing is don't over talk.
Okay.
Yeah. So people are not interested in you or your crimes, right? So the more you talk, just gives the more opportunity for people to hold things against you. That is by far the biggest thing I feel. So people come from the outside world, and amongst their circle, they're somebody. They're the tough guy. They're the funny guy. They're the best at this. They're the best at that. But everybody comes from a circle like that, and you'll find jail to be a collection of a lot of people who, amongst their friends, are the tough guy. And so don't play that out. Don't play out your character that you are with your friends amongst these people, because they're not here to hear that, and everything, like all human, it's not just jail, everything that you achieve, humans are, it makes them question themselves a bit, and they get a bit resentful about that. So I can guarantee you, if you go in jail and you're talking about how cool you are and some bloke you bashed, someone will bash you. So just do your own thing. Don't over talk, participate freely in conversations that are about meaningless stuff, and that's how you bond with people. hold your head high. Don't look at the floor. Don't look at people. Just do your thing. Concentrate on what you're on. Don't let anyone make you look at the floor. There's a balance to it. I'm not saying shut your mouth and look at the floor. Just be quiet and be yourself and do what you want to do. And the best thing that I've been taught, was one of the biggest lessons in my life. It was my very first time in jail. And it's so funny, because out of all the times I've been in jail, I think in adult jail was like 10 years and 3 years juvie. But in 10 years jail, I got taught like one thing. And it happened to be my first night in jail. And I went from boys' homes, blah, 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 cells, end up in Park Lee, 2004. So you can, the level of violence is mental. And I was in with an older Koori bloke in a cell. No idea who he was. He's from Campbelltown. Done a few years jail. Not a full jailbird, but knew what was going on. He said to me, he goes, did you just come from boys' homes? Because he heard me talking. I said, yeah. And he goes, but let me tell you something, how it works in jail, all right? He goes, never do something for someone that wouldn't do the same thing for you. He goes, do you know what I mean by that? I said, yeah, of course, lad. You know, I was young, bro. So I thought, yeah. And he goes, like, tell me, what do I mean? I said, bro, someone asks you to do something and say, get fucked. He goes, that's not what I mean. He goes, there's nothing wrong with doing things for people. He said, but if someone asks you to do something, imagine if you ask them what their answer would be back. So if matey in the next cell says, lad, can you pick up, finish his eating, and said, but can you chuck that in the bin for me? There's nothing wrong with doing something helpful for someone. But if you say to him, imagine it the other way around. You said to that bloke, big muscly matey who thinks he's tough, can you chuck that in the bin for me? What would he say to you? If you think he would honestly turn around and say, get fucked, you tell him what to do, then don't do it for him, no matter how many times he asks you. And that's just that puts you, that's just a safe middle. It's like you're no one's bitch, but you're not a tough guy. They're always going to be the most successful anywhere, really. Yeah.
So is it like, I mean, obviously the movies don't nail it, but do you have to be on watch 24/7? Is it that sort of stressful environment, or is it a bit relaxing?
It's not that stressful. It's not that you have to be on watch 24/7. You know what? To be honest with you, it's way more what you'd call hectic in boys' homes.
Right.
Yeah, way more hectic. There's periods of jail where, during the jail wars, the racial jail wars, where that was very bad. People were being stabbed to death, sometimes for no reason. It depends what yard you put in around what people you're put in with. And there's definitely people in jail. So I grew up in jail I was with the Kooris, the Aboriginals, right? That was my clique. That's who I was with. I remember when I was 18 years old, 19 years old, early years of jail, there were elders that we call uncles, whose life was nothing but jail, from areas like Burke and Walgett and Kempsey. These people were psychopathic murderers. They will kill you just over anything. I'm not even joking. So it is dangerous, right? That's few and far between. In terms of like, are you just going to walk around and get bashed? Is it like people? Nah, it's not. So you see a fight once a week. In boys' homes, you see 3 fights a day.
Right.
In boys' homes, you fight over nearly everything because everything's like playful and like, yeah, fuck yeah, you know. And everyone hasn't learnt their place yet. You know, boys' homes teaches you something. It's like, that's where you learn. And I think a lot of people in society can learn this. That's where you learn if you say the wrong thing, you get punched in the face. Yeah, and I think that's a valuable lesson.
It's a good lesson.
Yeah, and you learn that from boys' homes. That's the biggest thing you learn. It's like, bro, you say the wrong thing at the right time, you get bombed instantly. Jail is there's a lot more. There's no punishments in boys' homes. Like the worst, you could punch a worker in the face in boys' homes, right? And you'll get locked in this place they call holding cell for 12 hours. Right. That's the maximum punishment. In jail, you do anything, you're in this dark hole for 2 weeks. So there's a lot of at risk. So yeah, fights are few and far between. But if you go looking for trouble, you'll get stabbed. Yeah.
I appreciate your time.
No, brother.
I know you're doing, you've got a lot going on at the moment and you're having a lot of conversations.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to leave us with today? Any message to the people or a plug or anything?
Buy the book.
Buy your book.
Yeah. I got a Grouse podcast.
It is really good.
Yeah. The Search. It's on YouTube. It's on Spotify. It's a new podcast doing well. Yeah. I think it was a top 5 on Apple, top 20 on Spotify or something. It's going Grouse. Yeah. That's what I spend my time doing. I spend my time entertaining for people, for my profit, obviously, mixing that in between trying to send my message out there to tell people, tell kids. Really, I care about the kids. You know, as hard as it to say, when people are adults, man, I don't care. You know what I mean? I care about the kids and changing their life, and I do it. I do it subliminally and blatantly through the things that I produce. Yeah. Give it a sus. If you're interested in me, give it a sus to see it.
I enjoyed our chat. Thank you very much.
Sweet.
Bloody oath. Ladies and gentlemen, Spanian. What a bloody legend.
I hear him chat to the noise, move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him